بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Ma'arif al-Qur'an, the section on anthropology by late Ayat Misbah, Yazdi Rahmatullah alayh. You remember we focused on free will as one of the main distinctions between human beings and many other creatures. And we said for using our free will, we need some knowledge, we need some power, and we need some desires. Without some knowledge, we cannot make any choice, or at least we cannot make good choice. Without power, again, there is no point in making choices. Without desire, you are not going to do anything. We already talked about knowledge and understanding, what he calls shenacht. Shenacht means cognition. Different types of knowledge that we have, and we talked about also heart, etc. Today, inshallah, we talk about power, and if we complete this, inshallah, next session we will talk about desires and inclinations. So, first, he says, from one perspective, we can divide power, which is available to human beings, into four categories. First, natural power or physical power. In Farsi, he says, قدرت طبیعی یا فیزیکی. Means physical power, natural power. Maybe physical power is more accurate. This is what we can do just with our body, without any instruments, and without involving the soul and power of the soul, or extraordinary power, just with our body what we can do. So this is one type. Inshallah, we will explain each of them. Two, technical power. And he means by this what we can do when we use instruments, simple instruments, or maybe machines, industry, etc. Three, social power. What we can do in society or in interaction with other people, not using just our body, using our mind and mental power too. What we do with involving other human beings. Sometimes you alone cannot do something, but you employ or you collaborate, different ways, just or unjust ways, you may use power of other people as well. We'll talk about it. Four, and the last, is metaphysical power. This is not from body. This is from a spirit. But the impact can be on body or physical world or outside physical world. Now, let us study each of these four. As we start with the first one, physical power. Physical power by itself can be divided into three. Physical power that human beings have by which they manipulate nature. Manipulate not in the negative sense. Tasarruf means they do something in the nature. Maybe farming, gardening, picking up the fruits, etc. For example, Qur'an in a general ayah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم تروا أن الله سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة. This is general ayah because there are lots of references actually in the Quran to this type of power. How Allah made human beings able to benefit from nature. But this ayah is general. Allah has made whatever is in the skies and the earth, ما في السماوات وما في الأرض, available for our use. سخر لكم, made you able to manage them and benefit from them. Of course, we have to be responsible. It doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. Quran tells us, on the one hand, Allah made you able to benefit from them, made them at your disposal. On the other hand, of course, you have to be very careful. وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا أَنْشَأَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا. Allah asks you to make it develop, make it better, not that make it corrupt and useless and damage it and waste it. Surah A'raf, this was Surah Luqman verse 20. أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نَعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. It's general. Surah A'raf verse 74 is about ability to make buildings, houses in mountains or on the plain, in the plain land. وَبَوَّأَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah made you settled in the earth, in the land. تَتَّخِذُونَ مِنْ سُهُولِهَا قُصُورًا وَتَنْحِتُونَ الْجِبَالَ بُيُوتًا. Sahl is plain. So you make palaces, big houses when there is plenty of land. But also you make houses in mountains by removing some stone. تَنْحِتُونَ الْجِبَالَ بُيُوتًا. Prophet Salih ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi salam told his people, قوم الثمود, Surah Nahl verse 14, وهو الذي سخر البحر لتأكلوا منه لحما طريا. This refers to Allah enabling human beings to take food like fish from seas and oceans. This is another way that Allah has made us able to manage and benefit from bahr, from sea. Also, وَتَسْتَخْرِجُوا مِنْهُ حِلْيَةً تَلْبَسُونَهَا. Hilya is something that is used for adornment. So you take from sea like pearls that you can use for adornment. So this is one type of physical power. The second is very similar, but instead of talking about land, mountains, and sea, it's about animals, part of the nature, but a living part. For example, in Surah Nahl, verse 5, Allah says, وَالْأَنْعَامَ خَلَقَهَا لَكُمْ. Or خَلَقَهَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا دِفْءٌ وَمَنَافِعٌ. Allah created them for you, or Allah created them for you. There is warmth and benefits. In both cases, it means that we can benefit from animals for our survival and also for our convenience. Sometimes without clothes you may die, sometimes you suffer. But you can use this, for example, wool from animals, and make yourself, comfortable. Or for transportation, Surah Nahl verses 6, 7, and 8. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا جَمَالٌ حِينَ تُرِيحُونَ وَحِينَ تَسْرَحُونَ. When these animals in the morning come out from village, for example, they go out, and then in the evening they come back. There's beauty in this. But also وَتَحْمِلُ أَثْقَالَكُمْ إِلَى بَلَدٍ لَمْ تَكُونُوا بَالِغِي إِلَّا بِشِقِّ الْأَنفُسِ. They take your goods to the places that if you wanted to go yourself and carry these goods would be very difficult for you. إِنَّ رَبَّكُمْ لَرَعُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. So Allah, out of His mercy, has made this available for you. وَالْخَيْلَ وَالْبِغَالَ وَالْحَمِيرَ لِتَرْكَبُوهَا. Also, some animals for riding, not only carrying your goods. There are animals that help you with riding and taking you. وَزِينَةً وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. As a beauty, and He creates what you don't know. And there are other verses, for example, Allahu alladhi ja'ala lakum al-an'ama litarkabu minha wa minha ta'kulun. Some animals for riding, some animals as food. 3. Physical power of human beings, but by engaging other human beings. The one which is social is different. We will talk about it later. You remember in the 4 categories we mentioned. First was physical power. We are still talking about physical power, but this one is not engaging nature or animals, but other human beings, but physical and bodily engagement. For example, maybe a person helps other people, gives them hand to help them. Or maybe a person, beats others, kills others, someone steals their money, burns their house. So there are lots of things that physically people can do. And there are things that can be, for example, also good, like giving hand to others, helping them, carrying for them something. Or for example, marriage partly is also physical, and so they can have children this way. Then second category was using instruments, technical power. So here it's divided into 2 parts. Sometimes you have instruments and techniques to do something through methods which are common. Sometimes is through what he calls ulum gharibe, strange sciences, like magic. Okay, so the first, which is available to everyone through methods which they can learn is, for example, like how to make boats, sheep, etc. for transportation, passengers, goods in the ocean and the sea. Surah Ibrahim, verse 32. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الْفُلْكِ لِتَجْرِيَ فِي الْبَحْرِ بِأَمْرِهِ. Sakhara. This sakhara is something that we had it several times. Allah made it manageable for you, gave you power to control and benefit from this. Among all these creatures that we have in the world, so many animals, the usage of nature is nothing comparable to human beings. They do use, but very, very little. In Surah Anbiya, verse 80, Allah says, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ صَنْعَةَ لَبُوسٍ لَكُمْ لِتُحْسِنَكُمْ مِنْ بَأْسِكُمْ. We taught Dawood, ala nabiyina wa alihi wa salam, how to make, for example, shield, roamers, things like this. There is also something that maybe was a mu'jiza for Dawood, because Allah says, وَأَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. Yeah. In Surah Sabah, Allah says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ مِنَّا فَضْلًا يَا جِبَالُ أَوِّبِي مَعَهُ وَالطَّيْرَ وَأَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. Alana yulino comes from lean. Bab if'al للتعدية. Lean means to be soft. Alana means to make soft. We made hadid, iron, soft for Dawood. So Dawood seems that with his own hand, without any instrument, was able to use hadid and give it different shape and form. This seems not through ordinary methods. This seems to be mu'jiza. But, and also from riwayat Ayat Misbah we can understand. But allamnahu san'ata labusin lakum. This seems to be, he was given a method that we can also use. Another case is Zulqarnain. Ayat Misbah says this story is one of the stories in the Qur'an, and Allah has given it special account, and we cannot discuss it here. And parts of this story also are in need of more light, because we don't have enough information. So there are some explanations, but might be dhanni, means it's more speculative. Maybe it's not possible to prove all the details. For example, Allama Tabatabai Rizwanullah Ta'ala Alayh has a study about Dhul-Qarnayn, and as you know, he prefers that Dhul-Qarnayn might be the Iranian king, Cyrus, Kurosh. But we cannot say 100%, but he has some evidence. But basically the idea is that he was a righteous servant of Allah. He had power and he made lots of services. He reached a land that people suffered a lot from some brutal tyrants, and they complained to Dhul-Qarnayn about this issue. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. In Surah Kahf, verse 94, they said this Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they are corrupting. They make corruption in the earth. And they said, if you can make a wall for us to protect us from them, we are happy to give you whatever money you want. You can charge us whatever you like. Dhul Qarnayn said, قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير. He said, what Allah has given me is better. I don't need your money. But give me hand and bring me iron. فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما. I don't need money from you. I don't want to charge you. But أعينوني بقوة. Help me, giving me power so that I make this wall for you. Also he said Atuni zubur al-hadid, because he wanted to melt iron and use it for making this wall. What we are concerned with here is using some techniques to do something in the nature, and we can say this method was, for example, melting hadid, melting iron and making, for example, different pieces of metal, etc., is not something strange or extraordinary. It was a method that he knew, but even maybe Allah taught him, but something that everyone can benefit from. Maybe sometimes I think that maybe many types of food were first inspired by Allah. For example, how to make bread. It's very difficult to imagine how someone could see in the seeds of wheat this idea that if you can make them, peel them and make them flour, and then make paste and put on fire. Maybe they are understood little by little, but maybe Allah inspired them. Or for example, how to eat olive. Olive is very bitter when it is grown, and it needs a process. Who understood that we should process it? So maybe Allah inspired them, maybe by trial and error they learned. But anyway, even if Allah inspires for the first time, other people can then follow. So we don't want to say that making use of hadid was mu'jiza in the sense that no one else can bring, because one of the elements of mu'jiza is tahaddi, challenge, that no one else can bring like this. But this was not mu'jiza because other people can bring like it, although maybe it was inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one type, using ulum muta'araf, conventional sciences, techniques. But sometimes it's غير متعارف. For example, magic. Magic in principle is a reality. Some people may, falsely claim, that magic is done by them or against them. They make mistake or make lies. But we cannot deny that magic exists. Qur'an mentions magic. But how many types of magic are there? And what's the mechanism that magic works? This is very important. Is real change that magic makes, or it appears to those who see it in that way? or maybe magic has some manipulation of the perception of that person. So these are possibilities. For example, in the case of magicians of Pharaoh, Surah A'raf verse 116 says, سَحَرُوا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ وَاسْتَرْهَبُوهُم. They made magic by affecting eyes of people, visions of people, and made them frightened. They frightened people. أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ. So somehow they did something that they thought they are seeing something else. In Farsi, sometimes we use for some kind of magic, for example, or things like magic, we say chesh bandi, means as if they make you unable to see what is the reality and force you to see what they are doing, something like like shobade bazi, for example, shobada in Arabic, which is lower than magic, but they make you feel something, or see something. Surah Taha verse 66 says, يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ سِحْرِهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. These ropes that magicians threw, they were يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ, they were appearing to people, and people were thinking that they are moving fast, as if they have life. They thought these are like snakes moving fast. But يُخَيَّل, this was khayal. This was imagination. So maybe they do some tasarrufs, manipulate, the other person's understanding, perception, but not really making change. Another story is a story of Harut and Marut. In Surah Baqarah verse 102, Allah says, وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. Learning and teaching magic in Islam are not acceptable, except as wajib kifai, to defeat bad magic. So ulama, normally fuqaha, say that if we have magicians and then they may do magic against people, we need some people to be able to defeat their magic, destroy their magic. So this is exception. Of course, all maraja, fuqaha, mujtahideen have discussed this, or at least have fatwa about this, and everyone checks fatwa of marja. But generally speaking, in our fiqh, if you look at book Sheikh Ansari Makasib Muharrame, you see there's a discussion about this, about ta'lim al-sihr. So ta'lim al-sihr in general is not acceptable in Islam. Promoting, encouraging, all these things in general. And Quran says these shayateen, these satans, kafaru yu'allimuna an-nas as-sihr. They became feetless. They taught people magic. So it shows that maybe this kufr is kufr amali, and by making such a big mistake or big sin, they showed kufr. And also there were two angels that Allah sent them to Babel, Harut and Marut. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ. These two angels were sent for test. And they were not encouraging people to learn magic. They were not spreading magic. Actually, they were telling people that we are here as test. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. This confirms or at least supports my understanding about kufr. This kufr is about using magic, So they didn't teach anyone unless they said, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ. We are fitna, means we are something by which you are tested. فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. Don't become faithless or kafir, which means kufr amali. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَالزَّوْجِ. Although they were warning them, they were still learning magic from them and doing mischief. The mischief that Allah mentions here, which shows how bad it is, which leads to like kufr, at least kufr amali, is to separate between husband and wife. يَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَالزَّوْجِ. They were learning magic, how to separate between husband and wife. So, instead of learning magic to do something good or defeat bad magic, or at least not learning, maybe you don't need to learn, and if you want to learn, make good use of it. It was a test, but they were learning to separate husband and wife. But the Quran says, وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Of course, they were not able to harm anyone except بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. It's not that they can bypass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, what we can understand is that magic is a reality in principle, in general. Not every claim, but there is such a thing as magic. And it has some power. So this is why we are talking about here in discussion about power. It's not ordinary way. It's غير متعارف. But how magic works? It seems that magic works more by affecting perception of people. My humble view is this, that magic works, this not from the book, is my understanding. Magic works by bringing thoughts to the minds and hearts of people, and temptations or thoughts. Unfortunately, most of people, when bad thoughts or temptations come to their mind, they follow. Even if you don't have power of magic, if few times you tell someone your wife is a bad wife, maybe she has a relation with someone, just without even power of magic, if you just tell a person this, and if that person is not aqil, if not mu'min, first time may ignore, second time maybe take time to ignore, but little by little he develops suspicion. Then whatever the wife does, he interprets it in the way that would match, because when you are suspicious, then you are not objective. So, for example, she goes to visit her father or family. Oh, maybe he has a relation. One day she's late. Oh, she was somewhere. So, people who are not rational when thoughts come to their mind, either people put in the mind or they have themselves, as a human being, dhan can come, اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن, or sometimes people have mental problems, and then they follow their own thoughts and suspicions. It's just enough. One day he gets angry at his wife. She gets also angry, possibly, if she is also not rational. They will start fighting and then separation. So, the power of magic, in my humble view, Allah knows, is not something that you cannot resist. The power of magic is just by bringing thoughts and suspicions and temptations to you, and then you become a toy in their hands. But if you resist and don't, if you say, I have no hujjah between me and Allah, why I should think negatively about this person? I don't want to pay attention. Then first it's difficult, but after some time it's finished. So this is the second type of human power. So first was physical, second was technical, third social. Allah has given us some ability to have social also power. This is divided two. One is matlub, second is non-matlub, pleasant and unpleasant. Pleasant is in the form of collaboration, cooperation. Okay? So we can benefit from each other in society. Someone is teacher, someone is doctor, someone is engineer, someone is builder, gardener, cleaner. We all help each other. This is good. This is collaboration. And people have different skills, different talents, different management power, so they can use each other. Some people, have the ability to employ many people. Qur'an says, and Ayat Misbah says, that maybe this is the main social point from Islamic perspective. This ayah in the Quran maybe explains the main foundation of society or first social principle in the Quran. Surah Zukhruf, verse 32. وَرَفَعْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ دَرَجَاتٍ لِيَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا سُخْرِيًّا. Not سخرية. سخرية means to make mockery. سخرية from sakhara. Allah says we raise some of them over others, so there are differences. Some are better in something than others. Why? Because we wanted them to be able to make use of these differences, to manage. So some people become managers, leaders, pioneers, and they create jobs, they use other people. Because if we were acting on our own, just one person, we were not able to do lots of things. And if we were all the same, again, even if we were going to work together, but if we are all the same talent, the same power, everything the same, was not that good. Of course, here then, again, we have to be responsible. We cannot misuse other people, as we are not able to misuse nature, animals, etc. Fourth type, we said metaphysical power. This has, again, two types. Nafsani, you can say psychic, or maybe a spiritual. And that is to use the power of the soul, power of the spirit. Sometimes this is done by exercises. You remember many times in discussion about spirituality, we said, some people are after a spiritual power. We are not in Islam after spiritual power. We are after self-purification. Tazkiyatun nafs, not taqwiyatun nafs. Taqwiyatun nafs is like, for example, you do what some people do by putting lots of pressure on your body, not having any physical, pleasure, etc., so that your soul becomes powerful. But here, just the soul becomes powerful and has ability to inform you about other places, maybe bring something from another place. Here, this is power of the soul. It's reality. Soul has this power, but we don't encourage people to go this route. We go for the route of self-purification. Maybe Allah gives us this power, maybe doesn't give us this power. That's not important. But this is one way. About Samiri and the calf of Samiri, some people say he didn't have a special spiritual engagement here, or didn't use any spiritual power, extraordinary power, because Quran says in Surah Taha verse 88, "Ajlan jasadan lahu khuwar." So what jasad is? Ajl, this calf was jasad, a body, but was making noise. But in Surah Taha, the same Surah 96 shows that maybe there was also something supernatural, because it says فَقَبَضْتُ قَبْضَةً مِنْ أَثَرِ الرَّسُولِ. So from where Jibreel alayhi salam had appeared and put his foot, because angels can take form of human beings, animals, except dog and pig. So they can take a form of a bird, a human being. تَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا, can be like a human. So where Jibreel had appeared and had put its or his foot, the soil was special because of this touch. Samiri took handhold of this soil, and when was perhaps melting, for making this cast of the calf, put some of this or all of this there in this handhold. So maybe then this says that it was not all physical. The second is not nafsani, is not about spiritual or psychic. It's ilahi, and they are miracles, the divine power. And these can be divided into 4 categories, all found in the Quran. Awamil غير طبيعية ilahi. We are talking about divine metaphysical factors, but first category belong to nature. Like Musa alayhi salam was making a stick into a dragon, or Isa alayhi salam was blowing into the clay, becoming a bird. So the miraculous power belongs to something from nature. Sometimes is the second type, belongs to animals. Miraculous power, divine metaphysical power, belongs to animals. Like Hazrat Sulaiman ala nabiyina wa alayhi salam was able to control some animals. Number 3, the same again, divine metaphysical power or miraculous power belonging to jinns and satans. Again, like Hazrat Sulaiman. Hazrat Sulaiman had ability to control jinns and satans as well. Number 4, the same thing, metaphysical divine power, but belonging to human beings, like Isa alayhi salam reviving the dead human beings. And all these verses are available in the Qur'an. So, Alhamdulillah, we finished the discussion about power. We said there are 4 types of power in the Qur'an for human beings: physical power, technical power, social power, metaphysical power, and for each of them there can be subcategories. We discussed, Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, in the next session we talk about inclinations and desires. This is the 3rd element in making good use of, or use at all, of free will. If I know something and I have power for doing, but I don't have any desire, then why should I do it? I need desire for doing things that I can. Even for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may remember when I was saying that rahmah of Allah is the thing that explains why He created. Because if Allah has power, okay, you don't do everything that you have power to do. Say Allah has knowledge, okay, you don't do anything just because you do it, you know it. Rahmah of Allah is the one that can explain why He created. For human beings also, they need to have desires. If they don't have desire for example, improving, or they don't have any pleasure, they don't do anything. Inshallah, we discuss this bi'idhnillah in the next session. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.
Thank you.
May Allah bless, inshallah.
New question.
Yes.
Because all the ayat discussed today are very difficult ones to understand. So the first one is that the explanation you gave about summary and Jibreel update, he taking the
Yeah.
so the angels are kind of mujarrad, isn't it? And in that other ayah where these angels come to Prophet Ibrahim and he brings that feast that he brings for eating, and their body is not touching it, and that makes him afraid, Hazrat Ibrahim. And then the angels give him the good news of Ishaq, and then about going. So there it is saying that they weren't touching anything. But now we are talking about something physical under coming in contact with the Rasul.
Yeah. Yeah, they can touch. So they can come and sit on something, they can, walk. But they may not, eat and drink, or, they may not be able to be hugged, for example, by squeezing them, for example. It depends. Maybe depends on the way they manifested.
Or it could be that the Rasul mentioned here might be someone else.
Normally it is said it is Rasul means Jibreel, but
yeah, that is what I see in tafsir. It's generally
yeah.
Jibreel. The other one was about this Surah Kahf ayat. They are really, really very obscure, because in the beginning Allah says that he was given sababa, sababa, and then he goes to this place where the sun was setting and he sees some people. Then the other place he goes where the sun was rising, and then he goes to this place between the mountains, and it says that there were people who could hardly understand anything. And then there is a full conversation that these people come and say to him that Yajuj and Majuj are coming. So how does that match with not understanding these people? It says قَوْمًا لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ قَوْلًا, and then it goes on to say قَالُوا يَا ذُا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِنَّ يَأْجُوجَ وَمَأْجُوجَ.
Yeah, so maybe it refers to a problem in communication. So he was had difficulty in communicating to them, so they were not understanding, what he's saying.
But then they did manage to communicate.
But they were themselves, of course, communicating among themselves, and then Zulqarnain somehow understood what he said, found a way to communicate. But the level of communication was very low. Doesn't say zero, says يكادون لا يفقهون. Yeah, so maybe it was a problem of communication, or maybe they were not very advanced in their sciences, you know, very uneducated people. They didn't know many techniques.
With the history of the King Cyrus.
Pardon?
Does that match with the history of King Cyrus? Because as Allama Tabatabai says, it might have been King Cyrus of Persia.
Yeah. Allama Tabatabai has this view, which is very interesting, but it's not something that other ulama have all agreed, even after he said this. So, because there are
Alexander the Great, but then Allama Tabatabai says that it can't be because he was like a mass murderer, basically.
Yeah.
Killing people around.
Yeah, it cannot be him, Alexander, but Cyrus normally is seen as a good person, as a just person, and the king power, and you know he traveled, you know, and the territory of Iran was very expanded. He has some evidence, but there is no proof. Ayatollah Misbah also says this is zanni. He says we cannot be sure. Maybe Allama himself also was not sure. He suggests as a possibility, but we don't know. And maybe some people say it was, you know, referring to the wall of China. You know, some people say no, it was, you know, Minor Asia. You know, there are different possibilities.
About the ayah about Harut and Marut teaching magic and separating husband and wife.
Yeah.
You gave a very logical explanation for that. But is it also possible for people just by their intentions, bad intentions, or by their hasad to harm other people? Or bring disputes?
Yes. Yes, that is also possible. So as I said, you don't need to have magic power. Yeah. Sometimes just through your words, sometimes even through your bad, you know, thoughts. Sometimes a person, even if he's silent, but his presence can create problem. Yeah, and because, you know, in the same way that light spreads, darkness also spreads. So sometimes a person who is very mean, or a person who is very jealous, can bring bad things. Therefore we say min sharri hasidin idha hasad. So it's not that jealousy is only harming that person, and it's not that only jealous person may do harmful things. I think jealousy by itself is a negative thing, is a germ, and it's possible that a person with jealous eyes, for example, you know, create some problem, but these are not something that are decisive. Dua, sadaqat, all can help to protect. This Ayatollah Bahjat Rahmatullah used to say, you know, say these mu'awwazatain a lot. قل أعوذ برب الناس قل أعوذ برب الفلق, or maybe 4 of them, you know, قل يا أيها الكافرون. But I think at least these 2 he was saying to say it a lot, and they help with protection. Certainly there is something as bad eye. Experience shows, and you know, Quran also makes some reference, but we shouldn't, you know, lose our peace of mind thinking too much about this, you know, because, you know, I cannot do anything. I cannot travel. I cannot, you know, show people anything. Now just be reasonable and ask Allah for protection. Give sadaqah, dua, because Allah has a system. So these are like thieves or, you know, troublemakers in the world, but the world has a system. It's not that the world is run by these people.
It's difficult to understand how far it goes, because in the communities we are living now, they have this big thing about black magic,
Mhm.
and everyone they suspect all their own close relatives.
Yeah, that's bad.
Chances are, so how much a person can, I mean, obviously they don't have any concrete evidence,
Yeah.
or they might have something because people throw some things which look like magic things. But how far and how to explain it to these people that, I mean, maintaining relationship is very important and not being suspicious of all your own relatives,
Exactly.
with families.
This is why I'm saying that, the best thing to resist against magic is to be rational.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let emotions, suspicions, bad thoughts affect you. Just go by hujjah. Have you got proof or not? I shouldn't let my relation with my family members, my friends, be affected just because maybe there is magic. Maybe they are just. Islam doesn't accept these reasons for disconnection. Rational people, I think they are safe.
Thank you, Sheikh.
May Allah bless you, inshallah. التماس دعاء.
Tajid Wajh. Khuda Hafiz.
خدا حافظ. التماس دعاء.
سلام علیکم حضرت استاد، از ادب احترام وقت شما